Your emotions can be your greatest obstacle. They whisper lies in the middle of the night. They tell you you're not enough, that you've missed your chance, that it's too late. They magnify fear, feed doubt, and keep you stuck in a cycle of hesitation. But here's the truth. Your emotions are not facts. They are not always rooted in truth. They respond to the moment, not the mission. There are people right now who have everything they need to succeed: talent, opportunity, resources. But they can't move because they're paralyzed by how they feel. They feel tired, so they stop. They feel rejected, so they isolate. They feel discouraged, so they give up. But if you're always making decisions based on how you feel, you'll miss the future that's calling your name. You can't live your life on emotional autopilot. Feelings are indicators, not dictators. Just because fear shows up doesn't mean you have to follow it. Just because anxiety knocks doesn't mean you open the door. Just because you're angry doesn't mean you explode. Growth happens when you learn to manage your emotions instead of letting them manage you. Life is going to test you. People will disappoint you. The door you prayed for may slam in your face. You might work harder than anyone else and still feel overlooked. That's when emotions rise up. The frustration, the resentment, the pain. But listen, those emotions don't get to drive. You acknowledge them, but you don't surrender to them. Because if your emotions drive, they'll take you places your purpose can't survive. Success is not about how you feel, it's about what you do in spite of how you feel. It's about showing up when you feel empty. It's about speaking faith when fear is screaming. It's about staying disciplined when you're tempted to quit. Emotions are temporary, but your decisions create legacy. So don't throw away your future over a moment of weakness. You've got to rise above your mood. There's a stronger version of you on the other side of consistency. But to get there, you have to stop letting your emotions run your life. You have to learn to lead yourself. To speak truth to the lies, to say, I feel this way, but I choose another way. You don't need to feel brave to be brave. You don't need to feel strong to act strong. You don't need to feel inspired to move forward. You are not your emotions. You are not your fear. You are not your past. You are not your weakness. You are not your anger. You are more. You are purpose. You are power. You are chosen. And it's time to stop bowing to emotions and start standing on truth. The moment you stop reacting and start responding with purpose, that's the moment you take back control. Don't wait until you feel like it. Don't wait until it's easy. Don't wait until the fear is gone. Lead yourself. Master your emotions, because your destiny is too great to be controlled by something so small. Your emotions, while deeply personal and often intense, are not reliable indicators of truth. They are reactions, not revelations. When you're afraid, it doesn't always mean you're in danger. When you're angry, it doesn't always mean you've been wronged. When you're discouraged, it doesn't always mean you're failing. Emotions can feel overwhelmingly real, but that doesn't mean they reflect reality accurately. They respond to your environment, your past, your fears, and even your fatigue. You might feel rejected when no one has actually rejected you. You might feel like a failure even while you're making progress. That's because emotions are constantly shifting. They're influenced by what you eat, how much you sleep, what someone said, or even what you think they meant. People often live under emotional deception. They allow fleeting feelings to determine lasting decisions. A person might quit their job, end a relationship, walk away from a dream, or lash out at someone they love, all because of a temporary emotion. That's dangerous because it means your future is at the mercy of your current mood. You're letting something unstable control what should be stable. Truth doesn't shift like emotion does. Truth remains when the feeling fades. But to live by truth, you have to be able to recognize the difference between what you feel and what's real. This isn't about denying emotions or pretending you don't feel them. Emotions are part of being human. But just because you feel something deeply doesn't mean it deserves a place of authority in your life. Think about how many moments have been ruined by a feeling that passed. How many opportunities have been missed because someone didn't feel ready. How many relationships have been damaged because someone acted on anger before pausing to reflect. Emotions are powerful, yes, but they're not wise. They don't see the big picture. They don't understand timing, consequences, or long-term impact. They react in the moment without strategy or vision. When you treat emotions as facts, you empower them to define your identity, limit your potential, and confuse your purpose. You start believing lies like, "I'll never make it," "nobody cares about me," or "this is the end." You let feelings sit in the seat that belongs to truth. But truth says you are capable, you are loved, you are chosen, and you have a purpose beyond what you feel today. Learning to separate your emotions from truth is not just wise, it's necessary for growth. It allows you to stay grounded when everything feels unstable. It gives you clarity in chaos. It helps you move forward when your emotions are pulling you backward. You can still feel the weight of emotion, but not let it control your direction. That's the power of discipline and awareness, knowing how to feel it, but not follow it. There are countless people walking through life with incredible talent, intelligence, and opportunity, but they're stuck, not because of what's missing on the outside, but because of what's overwhelming on the inside. Emotions like fear, insecurity, doubt, and anxiety can quietly paralyze potential. They don't always come with loud warnings or dramatic breakdowns. Sometimes they slip in quietly, making a person second, guess their dreams, hesitate to take action, or shrink in the face of opportunity. What's tragic is that many don't even realize that it's not their circumstances holding them back, it's their emotions. They're waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel prepared, waiting to feel bold, but those emotions may never arrive in the way they expect. Fear is especially deceptive. It doesn't always scream, "Run." Sometimes it whispers, "What if you fail?" or "What will people think?" And those quiet doubts are powerful enough to keep someone from stepping out. People with world-changing ideas stay silent. People with gifts meant to bless others keep them hidden, not because they lack potential, but because they don't feel ready. Emotions tell them they're not enough, and they believe it. So they wait, and years pass. The tragedy is not that they couldn't, it's that they didn't, all because of a feeling. Doubt is another silent killer of progress. Doubt doesn't always mean something is wrong. It just means your emotions are trying to protect you from the unknown. But progress requires walking into the unknown. It requires stepping when you don't have all the answers. When you let doubt take over, you stop before you even start. You start comparing yourself to others who seem more confident or accomplished, and you assume you're disqualified before the race even begins. And yet, the truth is, most success stories begin with someone who moved despite their doubt, who acted before they felt ready. Insecurity builds walls around potential. It convinces people they have to be perfect before they try. It leads to overthinking, procrastination, and eventually inaction. Some of the most gifted individuals remain unseen because they're too afraid of being judged, rejected, or misunderstood. They want to start the business, write the book, speak the truth, but they let the fear of failure keep them silent. And while the world waits for what they carry, they stay hidden behind their feelings. The reality is, emotions like fear and insecurity will always be part of the journey, but they were never meant to be in charge. If you only move when you feel like it, you'll live a life of missed moments. You'll be present but not engaged, alive but not truly living. Your emotions were designed to be indicators, not dictators. You can acknowledge them, but you must not obey them. To unlock your potential, you have to move past the emotions that are trying to hold you in place. Because the truth is, everything you've been called to do lives on the other side of how you feel. When emotions lead the way, decisions become unstable and unpredictable. Making choices based on fleeting feelings rather than grounded truth is like building a house on shifting sand. There's no solid foundation. One day you're motivated, the next you're discouraged. One moment you're confident, the next you're insecure. When your emotions drive your decisions, your life becomes reactive rather than intentional. You find yourself constantly changing direction, starting and stopping, committing and quitting, all based on how you feel in the moment, not based on your goals, values, or long-term vision. Living by emotion is dangerous because feelings are temporary. They change with circumstances, with moods, even with the weather. But decisions have consequences that stretch far beyond the emotion that sparked them. That's why discipline is more powerful than desire. It's why commitment must be stronger than mood. If you wait until you feel like it to be consistent, you'll never be consistent. If you only work when you're excited, you'll never finish anything meaningful. Discipline keeps moving forward even when emotions want to shut everything down. Think about the times you made decisions out of frustration, fear, or anger. Maybe you walked away from something that was good for you because you didn't feel appreciated in that moment. Maybe you said something you didn't truly mean because your emotions were louder than your wisdom. Or maybe you gave up on a goal because the process didn't feel rewarding fast enough. Those are the kind of moments where emotions make promises they can't keep. They promise relief, not results. But relief is temporary. Regret can last much longer. The greatest leaders, creators, and achievers are not people who never feel fear or frustration. They're people who don't let those emotions sit in the driver's seat. They lead themselves through emotion. They anchor their decisions in vision, not in moods. They pause before reacting. They take a breath before responding. They remind themselves of the why behind the what, even when the how feels difficult. Because they understand that if they allow emotions to lead, they will be led in the wrong direction. Purpose requires clear direction, not emotional reaction. If you're building something that matters, your future, your family, your dream, you can't afford to hand the wheel over to something as unreliable as emotion. You can't build legacy with temporary feelings. You must lead your emotions, not follow them. You must decide that your values and your purpose will set the course, even when your feelings want to go another way. That doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means you become emotionally wise. You notice your feelings, but you don't obey them blindly. You feel the fear, but you act in faith. You recognize the frustration, but you respond with focus. You hear the doubt, but you speak the truth. When you stop letting emotions make decisions for you, You start walking in the kind of strength that builds an unshakable life. Emotions are natural, and feeling them is part of being human. You're allowed to feel overwhelmed. You're allowed to feel hurt. You're allowed to feel discouraged. But what you are not allowed to do is surrender your entire future to a passing emotion. Growth starts when you stop letting emotions govern your actions. It begins when you learn the difference between acknowledging how you feel and letting those feelings lead your decisions. Just because frustration rises doesn't mean it gets to rule your response. Just because fear shows up doesn't mean it gets to cancel your progress. The moment you give your emotions the authority to dictate your behavior, you hand over your power. So many people stay stuck in cycles because they have not learned how to sit with their emotions without being controlled by them. When life disappoints them, they shut down. When people offend them, they cut ties. When challenges arise, they walk away. They think they're protecting themselves, but what they're really doing is avoiding growth. Growth often comes wrapped in discomfort, in emotional tension, in moments where it would be easier to run but wiser to stay. And that wisdom only emerges when you stop acting on impulse and start acting with intention. Emotional maturity doesn't mean you never feel intense emotions. It means you've trained yourself to pause before you react. You've taught yourself to listen without always responding. You've developed the habit of asking, what is true here? What matters most here? What decision aligns with my values? Not just my mood. This is not easy. It requires self-awareness. It requires restraint. But more than anything, it requires commitment to something greater than comfort. There are times when emotion will try to convince you that you're a victim, that nothing will change, that you should give up. But if you surrender to those feelings, you stay small, you stay trapped. The truth is, strength isn't found in the absence of emotion. It's found in your ability to rise above it. You can feel afraid and still move forward. You can feel overlooked and still serve with excellence. You can feel unappreciated and still give your best. That's what separates people who grow from people who stay the same. The decision to act on truth rather than emotion. You must become the kind of person who doesn't need everything to feel right to do what's right. You need to become someone who leads yourself even when your feelings are out of control. That's where freedom lies. That's where peace starts. Not in controlling every circumstance around you, but in controlling your response within you. When you develop the ability to acknowledge emotion without surrendering to it, you become powerful. You become stable. You become someone who can be trusted with purpose, with influence, with greater responsibility, because you've proven that emotions may rise, but they do not reign. Success is not built in moments of excitement. It's built in moments of consistency, especially when motivation is absent. Emotion is a poor fuel for progress because it burns fast and fades quickly. But consistency, the ability to keep showing up regardless of how you feel, is what separates those who dream from those who do. You may not always feel inspired, focused, or strong, but the decision to stay committed to your path despite those feelings is where true growth and breakthrough happen. Many people start well. They begin a project, a goal, a routine, and at first, they're energized by the idea of transformation. But the moment it gets uncomfortable, boring, or difficult, their emotions begin to speak louder than their vision. They tell themselves it's too hard. They say it's not working. They think maybe they weren't meant for this. And then they stop. But nothing of value is built in a day. Progress doesn't happen in an emotional high. It happens through consistent steps, especially the ones you take when you don't feel like it. If you only move when you're motivated, you'll always stop when you're discouraged, and discouragement is inevitable. Life will challenge you, setbacks will come, delays will frustrate you, people may not notice your effort. The applause might be absent, but that's where consistency becomes your weapon. It says, I don't care how I feel, I made a commitment. It says, I don't see results yet, but I'm still showing up. That kind of mindset is rare, but it's what creates extraordinary outcomes. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. Anyone can sprint for a moment, but not everyone can walk day after day with discipline. The world celebrates talent and inspiration, but behind every great achievement is quiet, daily faithfulness. Showing up to the gym when you're tired, studying when your mind is foggy, practicing your craft when nobody is watching, speaking hope to yourself when you feel unseen, that is the secret. The moments of obedience without emotion. You will never reach your full potential if you're waiting for the right feeling. You must learn to move without mood. Train your mind to do what must be done regardless of what your emotions say. That kind of discipline doesn't just produce success, it produces strength. It builds character, it forms resilience, and over time it rewires your emotional life so that your feelings begin to align with your actions instead of the other way around. Every break through you seek is on the other side of consistency. Every mountain you want to climb will require steps taken on days when your emotions scream, not today. But if you keep moving, if you keep pressing, building, praying, working, serving, you will look back one day and realize that what made the difference wasn't passion, talent, or luck. It was consistency, the quiet, daily decision to show up anyway. You are not defined by what you feel in a moment of weakness. Your emotions do not hold the authority to determine your identity, your purpose, or your future. You are more than your fear, more than your anxiety, more than your anger, and more than your discouragement. These are passing emotional experiences, not permanent truths about who you are. They may visit you, but they do not belong to you. Your identity is rooted in something deeper than mood swings and emotional storms. It's anchored in purpose, in destiny, in calling. Things that do not shift with the seasons of your life. Too many people internalize their emotional state and begin to wear it as a label. They say, I'm a failure, when really they just experienced a setback. They say, I'm not good enough, because they felt rejected once. They say, I'm broken, because they went through pain. But that's the deception. Emotions trying to define you by temporary circumstances. You may feel something deeply, but that doesn't mean it tells the whole story. Just because you feel lost doesn't mean you are. Just because you feel like giving up doesn't mean you're finished. You can feel overwhelmed and still be on the edge of a breakthrough. There is a version of you that exists beyond your emotional state. The strong you, the focused you, the disciplined you. But to access that version, you have to stop agreeing with your emotions and start agreeing with truth. That truth says you have value whether or not someone else recognizes it. It says your voice matters even when you feel unheard. It says your life carries meaning even on days you feel invisible. You don't need validation from every person to be valuable. You don't need to feel powerful to be powerful. Power is not a feeling, it's a choice. It's the decision to act on what you know is true even when everything in you is feeling otherwise. When you stop letting your emotions tell you who you are, you begin to walk in clarity. You make decisions based on vision, not vulnerability. You start building a life that reflects truth, not turmoil. You respond with strength instead of reacting out of pain. You learn to say, this is how I feel, but it's not who I am. That simple statement is an act of power. It's a declaration that your emotions are no longer in control. You are, and in that shift, you begin to rise. You begin to grow. You begin to see yourself differently, not as a victim of how you feel, but as a steward of your potential. You realize you don't need to wait for your emotions to approve of your next step. You can take it anyway. You can show up anyway, because who you are was never dependent on how you feel. It's been there all along, waiting for you to stop listening to emotions and start living from truth.